We want to make sure that we have good marketing principles and foundational stuff. And then what you can do is you can take that to the medium of your choice. If you're big on TikTok or that's your main focus, you can take the principles there, and then you just have to learn the nuance and the strategies of that platform. But the messaging is going to remain true regardless, whether that's ads, whether that's TikTok, whether that's Instagram, whether that's Facebook, LinkedIn, it doesn't matter. But it all starts with your audience and be able to speak to them with a message and an offer that resonates with that specific person. So we always start with person. If you're not crystal clear on who your person is. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the show. I want to talk to you guys about something that was a big breakthrough for us last year, but we hear this a lot. Let me give you the scenario, and maybe you'll find yourself in alignment with this. We'll hear people that are launching an offer or, new course, new membership, new service, whatever the case may be. And what they're finding is that it's just not converting. And maybe they don't know exactly how their offer is different or that even needs to be different, right? If you offer a service that everybody else is offering, we talk about that. We call that solution-aware market. So if you have your market and there's a lot, like you're in a very saturated market, right? And some people that deters them from wanting to compete in that space. I would actually argue against that. I would say that having other competitors in the space actually validates the market. It shows that people want this thing, whatever that thing is that you sell, right? So if you're a dietitian, if you're a chiropractor, if you're a therapist, if you're an online coach of some sort, a marketing coach like myself, if there wasn't anybody doing that, it means that there's not a market for it. So that's actually worse news. So the kicker is that how do we differentiate? All right. So there's several other marketers that have talked about this concept. We're going to allude to some of that here today. Like a differentiated offer, like an Alex Hormozi is kind of what he's talked about at large. So I'm going to show you some visuals that kind of reflect that. Also, I've talked about problem and solution aware. That's an old school marketing concept, but still applies very much today. The kicker is this, right? We want to make sure that we have good marketing principles and foundational stuff. And then what you can do is you can take that to the medium of your choice. If you're big on TikTok or that's your main focus, you can take the principles there, and then you just have to learn the nuance and the strategies of that platform. But the messaging is going to remain true regardless, whether that's ads, whether that's TikTok, whether that's Instagram, whether that's Facebook, LinkedIn, it doesn't matter. But it all starts with your audience and be able to speak to them with a message and an offer that resonates with that specific person. So we always start with person, right? Always with person. So how do we get to that? Like, what does that look like? How do we get really specific about who that person is so that we know who we're speaking to? Now, that may start with insight surveys. That's going to be a topic for another day. Taking the time to have some one-on-ones with your customers or sending out an actual insight survey to your email list. Those are all things you can do. But for the sake of what we're doing right now, and if you don't have clarity on what we do right now, if you don't know immediately who your person is or the aspects of what I'm going to show you here, you need to do some digging. You need to dive into this. And you need to actually figure out, okay, I don't know who my person is. That's my problem. If you're not crystal clear on who your person is, I'm trying to think of a metaphor that comes to mind. Here's the first thing that comes to mind, right? It's like you take your wife out on a date, right? For the guys watching this, right? And you have no idea where to take her, like where she wants to go, what kind of food she likes, like you'd be like, well, that's crazy. How would you not know that with your significant other? Like what their favorite, like I know immediately, like the top 3-4 places that I would take Kim, my wife. That's the same thing, right? It's like you're selling something to someone, and sometimes we try to be everything to everyone. And what really matters is that we're something significant to someone specific. And so that level of specificity is really going to help, especially in a saturated market. You may say like, well, my niche is too small, whatever, right? And that's a fair complaint, right? We tend to think of numbers like this small, right? For those that are listening, I'm making a gesture associated with that. When you amplify that to the broader ecosystem of an entire city or the entire internet, right? That actually, you can find more people like that. That's a much different problem. Now, underwater basket weaving for, blind special education kids. Yeah, that might be really, really specific. But for the most part, right, it's really hard to like niche yourself to death, so to speak. And even if you do niche yourself to death, you just raise your price tags because it is so specific and you're likely having domain expertise in that particular area, right? So anyways, all that to say, I'm getting down rabbit holes. Let's actually show you guys what we do here. I call this the ICA sweet spot. And what that means is the ideal client avatar sweet spot, as you'll see designated by this, the ICA sweet spot, right? Okay. So these are actual avatars for us. So we have 3 primary avatars. Now, what I recommend and what I would do if I were you is I actually would give them names of people that you've probably worked with. So Anthropologie, Kim always gives this example. Theirs is Julia Roberts, quite literally a Julia Roberts. And so everything they do, all their marketing, the display of the store, everything, every presentation, marketing material, you name it, from the top to the bottom, Everything they do, it's would Julia like this? Would Julia want this? Would Julia buy this? And that allows you, when you personify that person and you give them actual real attributes, like an actual real person, because it should be one of your, like, if it were me, I would say if I could work with these 2 or 3 people, and that's the only people that I worked with, specifically in coaching, right? Because you deal with people all the time. But whatever, if you're a service business, I used to run a moving business. So if I said, hey, in my moving business, if I could move these types of people, A, B, and C, or just A and B, right? Or just A, like whatever that looks like for you, that give it a name, right? The Robertson family, right? That we moved. Like if I can move just the Robertson family types every single day, or just them every single day, I would love this business. So that's what you really want to do. You want to attract the people you want to work with, because there's no reason to create a business that people just suck the life out of you because they're just terrible people to work with, right? So there's somebody for everybody, and for your person, you just want to make sure you know who those people are. So we have an Amber, an Nadine, and a Danielle. Now, we've known that for a long time, and the common mistake that people make is that they'll just create a list of all of the attributes of Amber, they'll create a list of all of the attributes of Nadine, and they'll create a list of all the attributes of Danielle, and they'll call it a day. Now, what happens when you do that? Let's take a look, right? What ends up happening is you end up with an all-encompassing marketing message. And so while you tried to get specific and while you tried to personify literally your avatar with actual people that you've worked with, super fan customers of yours or clients, what ends up happening is that you try to encompass all of the attributes to attract more Ambers and Nadines and Danielles. Now, as we know, right, likely based off of the graphic here, what you're going to say is, yeah, but that's a lot. So you end up getting more broad or too broad or vague. Even though you try to get specific, you kind of miss the forest, right, for the trees. Like you had the right intention, and we were doing this too, by the way. So if you're in this situation and you're like, yep, I did that, totally get that, because this is what we did for years. And then we sat down and we really were like, okay, how do we get specific to that specific person? Like what embodies all these people so we can be specific for what they care about? And what I call that is the sweet spot, right? So you're literally going to do a Venn diagram. What I recommend, and you could literally jot this down on a paper if you want to, is you're going to put in all of the characteristics of an Amber, all of a Nadine, and all of a Danielle in your world, right? In your lingo. And then what you do is you're going to push yourself, and it's always the layer deeper in the onion, right? So you're going to push yourself to what is the sweet spot, right? Like what are the characteristics that all of them share? So if you have 3, and I'll tell you the differences between ours and how they all have something that they have in common, because what we found actually in our recent, annual planning retreat is that the Danielle doesn't really fit with the other 2. And so, yes, it's in a partially addressable market for us, but it's not our primary 2. And so we eliminated the Danielle, and maybe we'll come back with another offer in the future once we can expand our offerings to accommodate that person. But for now, we've actually eliminated that because of this exercise, right? So let me tell you what that looks like for us, right? These are the Amber and the Nadine and what they share in common. They're mission-driven. So for our world, right, business owners, that there's something more than just making money, right? They have something they deeply care about. They're serving in a way that they're leaving legacy and impact. Those are things that we really deeply care about. And so when we talk about that, you can tell there's that shared psychographic in terms of values, not just like demographic, which is fine. You should layer in demographic as well. They already have traction. So we're not newbie people. You've probably already gathered by watching this video. I'm not telling you how to start an Instagram account, right? I'm not telling you how to create your first graphic on Canva. Like there are plenty of people in the world that can help you do that. I'm not that person, and that's fine. So what we want to find, those people that have traction, because guess what? When they watch this video, they're going to say, oh my gosh, hopefully, right? Hopefully, that's my aim here, is that you watch this video and you say, I love this, because all I was finding is like these tutorials about creating things. But man, I really just I'm in a season where I need to level up how much money I'm making. And I feel like I'm missing the mark in my messaging. Perfect. Right? What Chris is talking about here really resonates with me, right? And then you don't worry about the numbers, because ultimately if 25 people watch this video, that's 25 potential people that I can help. So we have to shift our focus on that, right? You don't have to be popular on the internet. We talk about this all the time. Profitability over popularity. Because if you imagine 25 people in a room listening to you talk about something that's really, really, really important for what you do, like this specific video, this is really important for business owners that are trying to scale beyond where they're at. This is going to resonate with you. And so if it only gets 30 views, I don't care. It's 30 people. I'm changing my entire vocabulary around that so that I have that paradigm shift, right? And I recommend you do the same, by the way. Okay, they have an all-in mentality. We do not resonate. And I'm going to talk to you about an exercise you can do here in a second to help you arrive here if you aren't there already, with who these people are and what they look like and sound like and all that. We're all in. Like, we don't understand people, Kim and I, that aren't all in. Like we're in the deep end. We're unemployable. Like we will not go back. We love this work. We commit our lives to it. Most of the time we have to create distractions, not distractions. I would say escapes. We have to make ourselves like go do things like take breaks and go work. Like that's just who we are. And so when we're not working with people like that, it just frustrates us. And honestly, I think it makes a lot of people that aren't that way feel inadequate. I think it makes them feel like they're not worthy or there's something inherently wrong with them or whatever. And so the reality is they're just not the right person for them and vice versa, right? So for us, it's that all-in mentality about their business is super, super important. They're self-motivated. Now, excuse my typo here. They're very self-motivated people. So we are very much strategy people. And we're not, again, I talked about the Canva graphics, stuff like that. But conversely, I'm not a life coach. I'm not. So I'm expecting you to show up and be motivated and to be ready to rock and roll. And I don't have to give you a rah-rah every week, especially in a coaching relationship, as we have one-on-one clients in that capacity. That's not my game. That's not what I do. It's not where I can serve at the highest level that I can serve. And so for us, that's really important that person is self-motivated. A client for us is self-motivated. And then again, I mentioned before advanced strategies. So mission-driven, already has traction, all-in mentality, self-motivated, and advanced strategies. Those are the things we found where like that would be the ideal. That's what encompasses the psychographics, particularly of that person, and as it relates to like where they're at, where their head's at, so on and so forth. Now, there are demographic aspects. I'm not talking about that here, and that's okay. You could factor that in for our person, right? You can see here it's very much female-driven. So it's marketing, and it typically attracts a lot of females unless it's bro marketers. Typically more like ads and hacking and stuff like that will attract a lot of bros. But for us, a lot of like the content marketing or messaging and stuff like that, it typically attracts a female avatar, and that's okay. For us, it works and it's great, whatever. So if you're in the bro lane and like you run ads and that's what you do, and you're attracting a lot of male attorneys for what you do for your business, it's going to look different for you, and that's okay. So for us, I would say our sweet spot is more 35 to 50. If I had to expand it, I would say 30 to 50 is pretty much where we're at. So none of the 20-year-olds. That's why you're not going to find me on TikTok. It's not my people. It's not my game. It's people that have lived experience and they are providing for a family. They're mompreneurs. There's something bigger at play for them, like legacy that they care about, impact. There's a lifestyle that aligns with them, right? There's freedom components. So it's not like cars and clothes and things. And there's nothing wrong with that. But ultimately, I think that a lot of people, their audiences may be the cars and clothes things, especially like the bro hacker types, right? So anyways, let's jump here. So what we found, and again, I mentioned that we eliminated kind of the Danielle, is although she shares all of these, psychographic elements that I talked about, she also is unfocused and needs to be motivated, which is crazy because she's mission driven. She sometimes, in some cases, had traction, right? She maybe does have an all-in mentality, but sometimes she's unfocused and sometimes she needs to be motivated. And what we found is that was sucking the life out of us. And so what we've done, and what you can do then, is you start catering offers for those specific people. So that's why I said, make sure you're focused on what's the main thing you're selling. And then when you have time and bandwidth, then you can address, maybe somebody that fits most of those things, but maybe the offer is not right. So for example, a Danielle, she's not ready yet to work with us one-on-one or in our group coaching. And that's okay. But can we put her in our content club, which is a subscription that gives you, content inspo, things you can actually plug and play and run with, like done for you. Some strategies with social media and content creation, great, because it's not in a coaching capacity. Maybe when you figure out who you're going to be in the world and you've gotten some traction, a little bit more than what you have, maybe some clarity, maybe a different season of life, then you become more of an Amber and Nadine. But for the time being, it doesn't fit us. So we were trying to wedge a Danielle into more of our coaching programs, and it really was taking away from where we could serve at our highest level, which was the other two. So you may find that's the case. You may find you don't want to eliminate the third person because you do want to serve that person, but maybe for the time being, they don't fit for that particular offer. And we found that that's A-okay to be able to do that. So what we did is we narrowed it down to two specifically for our main focus, which is our group coaching and our one-on-one coaching. And then what we found is that they did share that. And the only core differences, and again, I recommend you do this as well, like what differentiates your two if you have two. For us, it was literally one thing. One has experience in business, and one is early in business. Now, the crazy thing is that this is an actual person, shout out to Nadine, and she's been in business for a year. Now, she came into our world, and we align on all these things, and she made her first 6 figures in her first 12 months in business. Why? Because alignment. Because she was motivated, self-motivated, and the advanced strategies that she was just absorbing like a sponge got her from here. So the Nadine is actually becoming an Amber in real time. Like that's happening. So well, that's what you want to find, because ultimately, especially if you're in a coaching capacity or you're an expert of some sort or you're a dietitian, I mentioned several, seeing people get that progress is going to make you feel rewarded, and it's going to make you feel competent in what you're doing because they're winning, right? And ultimately, you're not going to have these conversations where you kind of feel like you failed people because they didn't get the results, but it really wasn't your fault because it just wasn't alignment. So it's really important that you nail this, right? As you can see, I'm not trying to overly emphasize this. Okay, and then if you're still confused about this, again, I gave some advice on doing insight surveys, right? So talking to your people, doing some interviews. If you've already served customers, think about people that you absolutely love to work with, right? Like, oh my gosh, if I could just work with this type of person, great. Build an avatar around that person. Follow up with them, do some interviews, ask some questions. Why did you choose us? Tell me about yourself, right? Who are you? What do you care about? Why did it matter? Why'd you choose us over somebody else? What were your experiences with previous services? Guys, I did this in the moving business when I was in college. My brother and I started this, and my girlfriend at the time, now wife Kim, helped us. We literally went in downtown Athens and just interviewed people on a flip phone. They can just ask them questions about their upcoming move this summer. Why? Because we're moving college kids. Where are the college kids? Well, they're at the bar on Friday nights in Athens, Georgia. That's where they are. So get in front of your people. I know that's really bold, and that might feel like, oh my gosh, you're crazy. Why would you do that? So whatever is within your comfort zone, and if you need to get outside your comfort zone, this is your nudge to do so. But there's way more comfortable ways to do that. You can run Instagram stories and just do quick polls. You can send an email and offer a $5 gift card to do some follow-ups to find out, like, who is my Amber? Who is my Nadine? What do they care about? What do they really value in the services that I render? What do they really value in the product that I sold them? That getting clear on that's really important. But another thing you can do, and this is kind of funny, but the what we call the anti-avatar is, for us, is called a Lauren. So there are many descriptors that define a Lauren, but she thinks she knows everything. She thinks she's heard everything already. Sometimes you wonder when you're coaching in a marketing capacity, like, why are you here? Like, we're giving you advice. You resist all of it. You tell us why it won't work for you. And no matter what we say, you feel like you know it all. There's some man-hating involved, just being real. There is, like in a lot of our Laurens, there's a lot of man-hating. Maybe some background with men. And so with me being in the dynamic with Kim, it doesn't work. I'm also a little bit of an intense person, as I'm sure you've gathered. And so that doesn't really land well with a Lauren. So there's nothing wrong with that person. They probably need somebody that is more patient than maybe we are, and allows them to kind of take their own path. But this particular person, for us, it's a horrible fit. So when we have a Lauren come in, I'll be candid. When we realize it, we immediately tell them, like, hey, we just don't think you're a good fit. And we'll refer them and be like, hey, we think this person's a better fit for you based off people that we know in the space. But we're candid right out of the gates. We don't try to make it work. We let them know. So the reason I'm presenting it in this exercise, though, is because what you want to do, I just put the worst. But what you want to do is put down the characteristics of the Lauren. And the reason being is because it's process elimination. So if you can eliminate and define what you don't want to work with, sometimes what it does is it helps you figure out what you do want to work with, right? The antithesis of that. So starting with what you don't want to attract, I always say you want to detract as much as you attract in your marketing. And sometimes that means throwing stones too, by the way. Like Airbnb and some of the hotels, they've been doing a really good job of that, back and forth at each other. Like they're throwing jabs at each other about, like, hey, you shouldn't have to share a bedtime with your kid. Stay in an Airbnb, there's 2 bedrooms, right? Like that's a big thing. Like you're leaving your kids, so why would you want to go hang out with kids at the pool, right? Airbnb, privacy. Hotel, conversely, right? Why would you want to have to clean somebody else's pool? Enjoy your vacation, right? Because sometimes you show up in an Airbnb and you are cleaning somebody else's pool. So when you define who you don't want to work with, you can't throw stones at that person or that avatar, so to speak. Not an actual person. Don't go shouting people out, calling them out on the web. But what you can say is, if you're a know-it-all, or if you think you know everything and you're not coachable, this isn't the program for you. And what that does is it detracts that person, but also it tells the people that are your person, it's like, yeah, I'm not that person, I'm this. So it creates affiliation and affinity for the brand when you're able to throw stones. It's called common enemies in marketing as well. So, throwing stones, establishing a common enemy, all that is really, really important when it comes to building affiliation and affinity with who is your person. So my guess is that your anti-avatar, like if you are in a coaching capacity or whatever it is you do, they don't want to be, it's toxic, right? And it's toxic to the community. If you have a community, they don't want those people around either. We don't let Laurens in the community. Well, and Amber's going to appreciate that, right? And so she's like, I want a space of more people like me where I feel like I'm understood and I feel like I have tribe. And so those people are in there that kind of take over the community and are negative or whatever. Like you have to protect your ICA too, just as much as you want to not work with them. You also don't want your community to be exposed to that as well. Or your client base. Like if you have a physical location, they're coming in, like you run a chiropractic office, you don't want that type of toxic person in your office because everybody suffers for it. And honestly, the Lauren doesn't enjoy it either. So why are we doing this, right? So anyways, hopefully that benefits you. If you were listening again and you are watching on camera here, definitely recommend doing that. I'll include the link in the podcast description. If you're listening on the go, hopefully you got a general gist of what we're talking about here. But anyways, so this has been an exercise, like I said, that has really cut through the noise with us. We've been really able to attract and speak to our person more specifically. We call them calling them up. So if you're watching this video and this resonated with you and you feel like you're an Amber or Lauren, it probably called you up. You're probably like, hey, like I really resonated with this. And if you didn't and you're like, this is terrible, and you're dropping a negative comment in the comments below, like, okay, that's fine. Like everybody's for, there's somebody for everybody. So I did want to invite you, if you are this type of person and this is like, oh my God, give me more of this. Great. You do have the opportunity to apply to work with Kim and myself. If you are an Amber or Nadine, we'd love to talk to you and work with you. You can actually schedule that. You can grab the link below and we'll place you. If you're ready for one-on-one, if you're ready for group, whatever it looks like for you. But if you're ready to take your marketing to the next level, if you're ready to make more money, not just be popular on the internet or try to be fighting for engagement, but you're ready to start saying, hey, cool, I just need 100 people. I just need 25 people to make money. Yes, you do. So we can help you do that. And that's exactly what we do all day, every day. So if that's interesting to you, make sure you check out in the description, that link. And again, we'll place you if you feel like you're better for group or better for one-on-one. We'll go from there. So drop a comment below. Was this helpful? And what do you want to hear next? Do you want other strategies, or do you have questions about this you want me to elaborate on? I can do a follow-up video. Make it work for you, and I'm here to help. See you guys in the next one.